Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. It is Monday, July 29th, and Joe Biden. Good old Joey, the geriatric, the puppet, the child sniffer, the guy that dropped out of the race because his poll number sucked. Now, folks, we can't do this that much longer, so we might as well hit today off with a banger. The guy that hits a golf ball backwards, falls up a flight of stairs, looks for dead people in the crowd, converses with dead people, to the point where he's not just hearing them, Joey's seeing them, fights with his teleprompter, and it's still the most insane statistic in all of politics, folks. Joe Biden, his teleprompter is undefeated, folks. It's actually going to be christened in the Hall of Fame of teleprompters. It wears a heavyweight belt. Joe Biden is by far the worst president in American history, and you can only leave it up to the Democrat Party to put forward somebody that's actually worse than Joe Biden in terms of policy and just human beings, and that is Kamala Harris herself. So we're going to see a wild election, a wild 100 days here coming up, folks. And buckle up, because things are about to get crazy, folks. Well, hopefully all of you had a lovely weekend. We got a lot of people in the chat. You guys are ready to go this week, it looks like. Dizzy's in here. Karen, Cat Mom, good to see you. Pat's in here. We got Sunset, also known as GMQQ. Lily B. We got Donuts. A donut sounds really good right now. Oh, Lordy, does it. Who else we got in here, folks? We got Secret Agent 355. I see you. Jason's in here, also known as Tarbox, Ohio Farm Girl. What is going on with my chat here? Miriam's here. Let me refresh the page. It won't let me go to the top. Gotta see all the Patriots here. Danielle's here. We got Star Child. We got everybody here. Magic Sticks doing the magic. Lulu. All right. And I see Kathleen. All right. We got a bunch of people still rolling in here. Well, folks, let's kick off the news of the day. Rather than keeping you waiting, if you haven't heard, there was an election going on in Venezuela, and I went to bed, and Nicolas Maduro was losing. People were taking the streets saying, socialism's over, this is great. Well, not so fast, because Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro wins re-election as opposition disputes results. God, it sounds a lot like our elections where people are disputing results, and, there's probably a reason for it. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro was declared the winner. He was declared the winner of the country's presidential election on Sunday after securing more than 50% of the vote, although the opposition contends that the results are not accurate. There was reports that when Maduro found out he was losing, that he sent in the police and the military to go to the stations to keep them open even longer. And the reason why it's kind of a problem, not just the fact of the optics of it and the fact that you're sending the military as well as local police to get out there, but you're also extending the election. And so when people find out that you're losing, they're going to rush to the polls to get their vote in really quick because they want their winner to win. Basically counting on all the lazy people to get off their tushies. So head of the National Electoral Council said the results were based on 80% of the voting stations and represented an irreversible trend. Maduro being declared the winner of a third term, the opposition claimed victory, setting up a showdown with the government over the results. Well. There you have it. Venezuela is not going to turn around, folks. Venezuela has breadlines. The human population in that country's body weight has dropped substantially. And y'all remember when Bernie Sanders said that breadlines were great? Y'all remember that one? Because Bernie Sanders is a socialist. And it's weird because this is the guy that honeymooned in Soviet Russia. This is the guy that used to brag about Venezuela. Look how great socialism is. So basically what he does, and Democrats kind of do this quite a bit, those that are on the socialist side of the Democrat aisle. Notice you don't get any socialism or communism from the right-hand side of the aisle. But that's here nor there. It's funny how every time in this past, he would always sit there and champion out a socialist country. But then when it fell, all of a sudden he moves on to the next new socialist country. And then when that falls, then he moves on to the next socialist country and claims that he never bragged about the previous ones. So that's the way the Democrat Party rolls. But I wanted to make sure I bring you up to date on the most recent election news there in Venezuela. And it looks like we had a birthday over the weekend. It looks like it was Patrick's birthday. Holy lordy, Patrick turning 21, man. Shout out. Of course, I know it's not 21, but cheers to you, my friend. Congratulations on the most recent birthday. 45 trips around the sun on Saturday. God bless you, man. Good for you, dude. Heck yeah. You're still young. You're still young. As Trump would put it, happy birthday, Patrick. Happy birthday. Where are you at? I see you back there. So moving into a little bit more of the news, Kamala Harris is back in it again. When is she not? And she says, was the left of Bernie Sanders in the Senate, or I shouldn't say was she. She is the left of Bernie Sanders in the Senate. And here's a clip, you guys, of her being basically a communist. I mean, there's actually, I was trying to figure out another nice way of saying it, but there really isn't. Here she is. This is the next possible president of the United States, and just listen to the crazy stuff that's coming out of her mouth here, which is communist.
It has to be about a goal of saying everybody should end up in the same place. And since we didn't start in the same place, some folks might need more. Equitable distribution.
Giving resources based on equity, understanding that we fight for equality, but we also need to fight for equity, understanding not everyone starts out at the same place.
So there's a big difference between equality and equity. Equality suggests often everybody should get the same thing. Well, that often assumes everybody started out in the same place, as opposed to equity, which is everyone should end up in the same place.
I want to pause this because a lot of people will listen to this as a form of socialism, which there is some truth to it. But she goes further in the idea that everybody should end up in the same place. And now you're getting into the form of utilizing force to implement certain strategies and mechanisms within your society to get people to end up in that very same place. And if you want to see how that's already formulating in the United States already, one, I mean, you can look at your healthcare, but also a form of what's taking place in the education system by removing certain aspects of metrics, exams, timing in terms of when assignments are supposed to be turned in, so that everybody can end up in the same place. Another way they're doing this through force is to remove AP classes or honors classes, because they're saying there's a disparity within races, that some can't get into honors or APs because their grades aren't good enough. So what are they going to do? Well, they're going to get rid of the honor classes, and that's already taking place. So this is wild coming from her. I'll let her continue, but to end up in the same place is that you're going to have to put some sort of force upon another group of people, doesn't matter if it's race, ethnicity, class status, whatever it is, to sit there to uplift the group that is allegedly being discriminated against, or there's some sort of disparity that's taking place.
And if you then understand not everybody started out in the same place, you understand some people need more. So we all end up in the same place.
That's wild.
Right?
We are proud of the fact that equity is one of our guiding principles. Proud of the fact that we understand equality is important, but not everybody starts out on the same base.
We see that people in our country are having an experience that is not equal. So when we talk about the work we are doing here together, it is recognizing that and being guided by this principle of what we must do in the spirit and in the interest of equity.
So there's a reason why I started off with that news about the Venezuelan election, because that's a country that went socialist and has completely collapsed. And there's people, hundreds of thousands of people, begging for freedom, begging for democracy in that country. And, well, quite frankly, it's not happening. And now the Democrat Party here in America, at the bare minimum, and this is me being generous, wants to put forth a socialist named Kamala Harris, who is saying communist stuff for years. And they want to put her forth, you guys. The idea that she wants everybody to have the same outcome the only way this can happen is through force. There is no other way of that taking place. And what could some force look like? Well, just quite frankly, just taking your money. I mean, that's one thing a socialist or a communist will never take from you is your job, because that job has to sit there and fund and uplift other people so everybody are the same. Isn't that an astonishing thing that your hard-earned money is going to go in the pocket of somebody else because they didn't want to do whatever was necessary to get to the same place as you. And that doesn't mean that's from their fault. That could be from external forces or whatever it may be. It doesn't matter. But the idea that they're going to take stuff from you, and they will, by force, to then thus give it to somebody else because they may not be achieving at the same success rate as you are, that's just stealing at the end of the day. So, this is a lady that's being puppeted out there literally because nobody ever voted for her. Again, I'm gonna keep saying that nobody ever voted for her. And when she's questioned on these ideas that she keeps espousing as socialism or communism, depending on what she's talking about, then she sits there and doesn't know how to rebuttal it. And so she does this nervous laugh. And here she is with the nervous laugh.
And is that a socialist or progressive perspective?
No.
And is that...
That's the best the Democrats have, you guys. That's the best the Democrats have. And so, because Joe Biden wasn't polling well, which is really amazing, right? Because Joe Biden, to help him win the election, because his brain wasn't working correctly, and still isn't, he had to sit there and allow 10 plus million people into the interior of the country. Right now, we have roughly, in totality, 25 to 30 million illegal aliens in the country present time. Okay, that's more, if you look at in terms of the population of each individual state, that's more than half the country in states populations. People go, well, why that's a big deal? Because we have electoral college. We don't go by the popular vote. So you can, depending on what state these illegals are in, could sit there and actually void out your vote as a conservative or Republican voting for, say, Donald Trump, and they'll be voting in favor of Joe Biden or, well, now Kamala Harris. That was the agenda. So rather than putting Joe Biden forth because he was so terrible, now they're putting forth Kamala Harris, and all these illegals are going to vote for who? Kamala Harris. We already know by research and data that first-time voters that are here illegally overwhelmingly support Democrat. And it makes sense because the Democrats are the ones that allowed them into this country. And through basically feelings and emotions, they feel obligated to vote for the Democrat Party. So Republicans here are basically seeing Chuck Schumer as somebody that's puppeting this whole thing and is trying to call his bluff present time. And that's why Republicans say Schumer must act on voter proof of citizenship bill if Democrats really care about democracy. It's funny because they care about democracy until they're losing. And then when they lose, obviously democracy goes out the window, right? Democracy ultimately doesn't make sense to them anymore. And so rather than putting forth Joe Biden, who had 14 million votes to be the Democratic nominee, well, they'll sit there and do a coup on him. They'll put forth Kamala Harris, who has not a single vote and still is the Democrat nominee, but probably will be here in August. Well, now they're going to call his bluff and see if he actually is for democracy. Republicans have been urging Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer to pick up a key legislative proposal that would require states to verify proof of citizenship to vote in federal elections. Democrats won't do it. It would not be a shock to me if this guy's like, nah, not going to do it. They argue the bill is critical to ensuring election integrity in November, but is so far stalled in the upper chamber. You have this Representative Tenney, co-chair of the House Election Integrity Caucus, spoke to Fox News Digital about this on the sidelines of the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. She described the election integrity as the premier issue of the 2024 election, noting only 5 Democrats voted in favor of the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility SAVE Act. Folks, this is basically just to sit there and make sure that what is already illegal actually gets carried out in a process. In other words, basically executing laws that are on the books and forcing people to do so because it's already illegal to vote illegally. But Democrats don't care. They'll do it. They'll do anything to win the election, clearly. They will actually circumvent democracy to win the election. And Democrats are totally cool with it. That's like, I told you, they don't care about anything. They don't care about integrity. They don't care about any of that. Like I said, I've always said this. If the Republican Party ever did what the Democrat Party's doing right now by putting forth a nominee that I never voted for in terms of like, didn't even have a chance to vote for, say goodbye to that party for me. I would be unregistered the next day. Everyone should be talking about the SAVE Act. And the fact that 198 Democrats voted for non-citizen voting in our elections, quite frankly, is wild, but not a shocker. Nothing interferes more with our elections and our democracy process than to allow people who have not created and given up the responsibilities of citizenship, but are receiving the benefits of citizenship. And I think that's really important. One citizen, one vote. Democrats are going to sit there. They're already pulling foozery. We said this was going to happen. Did we not, Patriots? I'm looking at you in the live chat. Did we not say this was going to happen? That things are going to start ramping up. We're actually less than 100 days out from the election. It's only going to get worse. And heck, we got a lot of evidence to prove so. And just another reason to sit there and make sure you go out and vote so that we can sit there and have so many people that vote that hopefully those people outweigh the non-citizens that are end up voting in our country, you know, taking hold of our healthcare system and doing all those things. I see y'all in the live chat. Shout out to all of you folks. Make sure you hit the like button, but it's good seeing you on this fine Monday morning. So the SAVE Act. Well, again, we'll see if Chuck Schumer actually cares about democracy, but, you know, from his history, doesn't really look like it's going to be the case. So your daily reminder is here, though, folks, that Kamala Harris is and was in charge of the border, and the media is trying to make it seem like it's not. Well, Kamala Harris does not believe that illegal immigrants are committing a crime. Mind you, this is a party that wants to sit there and allow illegal immigrants to vote because they're not criminals, folks. They're just looking for a better life. Completely disregard the ones that kill our people and behead people and sell drugs and, you know, steal children and sell them off into the slavery trade and then sex trafficking children, all that stuff. No, disregard that. They're all here for a better life. Here's Kamala.
It is wrong to somehow suggest that an undocumented immigrant is a criminal. Being an undocumented immigrant is not a crime.
I know what a crime looks like. An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal. An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal. An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal.
An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal.
An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal. An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal. An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal. An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal. An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal. An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal. An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal.
An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal, and we have to correct course in this conversation.
We're not going to treat people who are undocumented and cross the border as criminals. That's correct.
I mean, can you get any more clear? Here's the astonishing thing, right? Donald Trump comes out and says, I don't know what Project 2025 is. I'm not for it, but they can do whatever they want, basically. So he says, like, you couldn't get any more clear. He's like, I'm not for it. I disavow, whatever. The media and Kamala Harris' administration goes, he's for Project 2025. J.D. Vance is for Project 2025. And they both keep coming out like, yeah, we're not for Project 2025. We haven't even read it. It's like 900 pages, 1,000 pages. Like, nobody's read that thing. Like, I'm not going to sit there and be for something I know nothing about. Not for it. Unequivocally deny. I'm not with it. They're for Project 2025. And then when we come out and say that she was the border czar, her and the media say, no, she's not. She was never in charge of the border. She never did this or that. It's astonishing that the media are complicit with the Democrat Party, and they're going as far to censor conservatives, censor the former president from the internet, which we'll get to in one moment, and sit there and gaslight their own party. There's no self-respect, it seems like, for some Democrats, where they'll just sit there and go, it's all great. It's fine and dandy. Like, there's no thought process with some going, who actually voted for this lady? Hold on a second. I see her on tape saying this all the time. Like, of course we have to edit it because it's a montage, but it's not like we're manipulating the tape. It's not like we're manipulating what she said. That's what she has been saying for a long time. You don't get that many clips over a weekend. You know what I mean? You sit there and have to be espousing this nonsense for a very, very long time. And speaking of somebody espousing nonsense, we got Elizabeth Warren here talking about mass citizenship. So if the whole thing of them voting illegally doesn't work out here, and let's say the Senate does pass this, you have to show citizenship to vote. Well, don't worry, you guys. Democrats have a plan B here. We'll just give them citizenship then. Yeah, 30 million people. Don't worry about it. Just give them citizenship like that. No big deal.
Recognize, and I know that Kamala Harris knows this, this is a problem that ultimately has to be solved by Congress. We need the tools in order to have more resources at the border, to have more resources in the states and cities that are supporting migrants. And I believe we need to create a pathway to citizenship. All of that is a part of what we need to do for comprehensive immigration reform. Kamala Harris will work with Congress and get that done. Recognize, and I know.
How is that? Just, again, they shout these things, and I swear there's not a thought in her head. Somehow that giving amnesty to 30 million people that came here illegally, that includes, by the way, their process includes like criminals, like people that are selling people off into slavery still. I mean, look, Democrats have always been for slavery, folks. They still are today. It's not so much a physical type of slavery, even though they're allowing it to happen. So I guess one could make the argument for it, but more of a metaphorical type of slavery of keeping people down and having people buy into their crazy ass ideology of socialism and quasi-communism, like we saw from Kamala Harris. I mean, they are still for it, kind of have always been for it. Hell, they fought a civil war for it where people died to still promote slavery, but we want to make sure we keep that out of the history books because then it kind of, sits there and ruins everything for them. She's going to sit there and somehow say this is immigration reform to allow mass amnesty. What reform is that? Aren't you just enabling that type of behavior? You're not really reforming anything. You're just exacerbating the issue rather than sitting there removing people or at least having some sort of filter process to see who should stay here even though they were illegal. Maybe they're contributing to this country in some greater fashion than maybe other Americans are. I don't know. But to sit there and say it's reform is a little disingenuous. But again, they're showing their hand early, you guys. This is what they're going to do. They're going to sit there, and if things don't work out in their way, they're going to ultimately push forward mass amnesty, potentially before the end of the year. And, well, there you go. Now you got 30 million people voting for the Democratic nominee for the next generation, and you'll probably never see a Republican president in your lifetime. Never again. And so what are they doing? You have these top surrogates coming out, like Elizabeth Warren, like Chuck Schumer, but you also have Pete Buttigieg here, where he says top surrogate here excuses the countless murders of U.S. citizens by illegal aliens Kamala Harris welcomed across the border. Illegals with no right to be here. Harris has the blood on her hands, which is actually true here. But let's listen to this psychopath who potentially could be the next vice president.
I saw something else really important happening at the Republican National Convention on the border and the talk about immigration, which we all recognize is a problem, which is they tried to paint this narrative that if you live somewhere far from the border and immigration hasn't affected you personally, you need to think that immigration is a driver of crime. That was the real message. Immigration leads to crime.
Well, there are blue state governors and mayors who say every state is a border state now. That's Democrats.
Yeah,
saying.
And now they're saying, but what the false message of the RNC was that this is leading to an increase in crime.
Well,
and I think it's really important that we talk about crime.
Have been very high profile about people. If they had not been in this country
cases,
illegally,
this is my
people
point,
would still
right?
be alive.
Trying to make people think that crime is up when crime is down under Joe Biden and crime was up under Donald Trump. Now, I don't know how often that gets reported on this network. So if you're watching this at home, do yourself a favor and look up the data.
Well, we invite that.
Great. So if you look this up at home, you will know that crime went down under Biden and crime went up under Trump. And I think the violent crime, for sure. So I think the really important thing to ask is, why would America want to go back to the higher crime that we experienced under Donald Trump?
Okay, but they also may want to ask why they'd want to go to millions fewer people coming illegal across the border, and every single person who's here and was involved with a crime, that's a life that didn't have to be lost. And I think that's...
Just to let you guys know, just inherently, that whether you're for illegal immigration or not, just by having people come into this country illegally and committing a crime, that's what have happened in the first place if they never entered this country illegally, would cause an increase in crime no matter what, because you already have the American baseline of crimes being committed. So once you have somebody coming in illegal, thus, because you're having somebody here not legally, would increase crime no matter what. Now, what he's doing is, well, he's saying, well, crime just in totality is down. But what they've also not uncovered for you all in this is Joe Biden has asked the FBI and other, say, local and state police, depending on where you're at, not to report that crime. So we'll get to more of Pete Buttigieg in a second in terms of crime. You know what? Let's just kind of show this really quick here. See if I can get it on your screen for you. Here we go. So for all the dumb liberal sheep in these replies, crime isn't down, it's soaring. So I was going to get to it later in the episode, but let's just cover it right now. In 2022, the Biden regime made it not mandatory for precincts to report crime stats to the FBI. Gee, sounds a lot like what we just said, was it? Showing the receipts. The result was over 6,000 precincts reported none. Oh, just not a single crime. God, that sounds a little weird, doesn't it, Patriots? Not a single crime. Well, including many Democrat-run crime-ridden major cities, now it's up 40% reported no crime stats. Maternity leave, Pete knows this, but also knows his voters are dumb as a box of rocks and will believe any lie he tells. Just read the replies, it proves it. It's weird how you look at these crimes, right? Now, when you look at this, I'll give you an example. Like, let's look at Florida. Florida's pretty much a red state, right? Didn't always used to be, but now it is. When you look at this, though, you have to not look at the state. You have to look at the localities and cities within that state. The reason why is because you'll be manipulated by the Democrat Party. I'll give you a case in point, something that's really happened. Is Whoopi Goldberg on The View goes, well, it's red states that have all the crime. There might be truth to those red states having the highest crime rates, but it's a manipulation because it's the blue cities in those red states that have the highest crime. So it's still Democrat-ran areas that are basically running roughshod over the localities and the states, and Democrats want to sit there and cover it up. As to why, they have to, I've said this time and time again, they have to love the crime. They have to love the homeless. They have to what I mean by the homeless crisis. We should all love the homeless, right? We got to uplift them and help them, of course. But the illegal immigrants, they want to sit there and allow to have amnesty and all these things take place, right? The sex trafficking, the drug trafficking. The reason why, they're still voting for it, you guys. It hasn't changed. Look at California. Democrats went out of their way for Prop 47, which basically makes it a misdemeanor if you steal anything that's $950 or less, meaning basically nothing's going to happen to you. Heck, I mean, we've seen time and time of video after video of people just taking trash bags full of stuff and just walking out of the store, not running like you see in the movies, not shooting up the place with like an Uzi like we see in Hollywood. No, they're just sitting there stealing lip balm, grocery bags, toothpaste, and Democrats go, well, there's reparations. That's their reparations. They gotta feed their families. Really, with deodorant and lip balm? What, are they feeding their kids toothpaste and pencils? So Democrats love this stuff. If they didn't, folks, they wouldn't be voting for it. I'll tell you that much. Oh boy, they wouldn't be voting for it, but they are. And by the way, like I said, they're going out of their way to vote for it. We got Jason with the $5. Thank you so much, Jason. Always appreciate it, brother. Always appreciate your support. Thank you, everyone, for showing there is sanity still in the USA. Yes, sir. That's why we come here as patriots. That's why we come here together as a community. Let me tell you that. What our heads are on straight. You know what I mean? We don't want to allow this country to go down the drain. We don't want it to turn into Venezuela. But, you know, hey, you leave it to the Democrat Party. They'll make sure that happens, folks. Hell, they nominated Kamala Harris. Nominated, air quotes. So here's Chuck Schumer encouraging Senate Democrats to campaign as closely as possible with Kamala Harris because, you guys, her record is incredible. Yes, he said, we need a good laugh. You know what I mean? We need a good laugh this morning. Here's him talking about a record.
Vice President Harris, now the presumptive nominee. Senator, are you encouraging Senate Democrats, including those in battleground states, to invite her to campaign with them, to have her in their advertisements?
Yeah, the Biden-Harris record is just incredible, as I mentioned. All the specific things that they have passed together working with us. So it's an incredible record, and our senators are already talking about it.
Oh, God, this is what they're doing, you guys. I mean, talk about the gaslighting, right? We knew it was going to come. Again, I just said August. I thought this was all going to happen in August. It's all moving too quickly. You guys, can we just look at some of their accomplishments together? Let's just look at some. Let's give a shout out to some of their accomplishments. Let's take the time. No. You heard from Chuck Schumer. We got to take the time to look at her accomplishments. So she's allowed about 15 million unvetted illegals into the country, on top of thousands of terrorists, which comes from the CIA. This is none of my words, okay? It's not like my opinion. The CIA and the FBI have said there's thousands of terrorists in our country. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Kamala. Huge accomplishment. Historic inflation crisis. All your goods on an average basis are up 20%. Record high gas prices, all 50 states. I mean, if you think about it, it is an accomplishment, you guys. to make sure that you don't just hit like half the country or 1/3. Like they really were just really going for, yeah, 49 of the 50 is not enough. We got to make sure we hit all 50 in gas prices. That's an accomplishment. Oh, they did that one. Record high consumer debt. We've never had credit card debt this high before. Ukraine-Russian war, really give it up to Joe Biden for being weak and really allowing Vladimir Putin to flex his muscle by going into Ukraine. Nice job, Joe. Nice job, Kamala. Israel-Hamas war, again, goes with the weak leadership that we have here in terms of a president and vice president. A disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, people literally falling from the sky, 13 servicemen and women blown up, and just giving over $1 billion plus of military-grade equipment to the Taliban that allegedly sold it off to Hamas, who committed that heinous crime, and basically Israel's 9/11 on October 7th. Oh, nice job, Kamala. Nice job, Joey. Good job, guys. Tried to jail political rivals in name of democracy, like we saw from January 6th, like we saw when COVID-19 was taking place, when you had people being jailed for just wanting to go to service to worship their God, whoever that may have been. I mean, again, we got Jewish people trying to go to their synagogues. You got Buddhists, all these people, all being thrown in jail, pastors, priests being thrown in prison. You got them going after Donald Trump for not paying a parking ticket on time. The guy sits there and stubs his toe in which way they don't like. Grand jury, put the guy up. The guy freaking cracks a Diet Coke or Coca-Cola not in the right way. Sit there and put him in jail. Lied to the American public about Joe's decline. That one's a big one. Still, nobody wants to question her on that one. By the way, she has not done a press conference, you guys, since allegedly becoming the nominee. Why? Because hopefully the news cycle will become so crazy to where the media actually won't question her on the fact of, hey, how'd you become this nominee without a single vote? How is that actually possible, Kamala? Or, hey, Kamala, let's question you on your record. Why'd you allow 15 plus million people to come across this border that included violent gang members, drug lords, sex traffickers, all that stuff, including terrorists? Like, can you elaborate on that? Because all of a sudden you're not part of the border anymore, that whole thing that we'll get to in one moment? No? Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they haven't done a press conference because, right, like Pat said, like all of you say in the chat, nobody actually voted for this chick, and she got nominated, and she's going to sit there and destroy this country once again. She declared war on the American energy. You heard her say, which we'll get into in one moment, that she doesn't want to allow fracking to take place, which is astonishing because if you just drill, baby, drill, that's going to really alleviate a lot of this inflation that's taking place. Granted, there is a case to be made that it could cause inflation. Inflation goes both directions, but it would make the price of goods and services cheaper or at least staying stagnant. I don't think it's going to drop all too much, you guys. We're kind of screwed no matter what, but it will at least stay stagnant. Record low test scores for K through 12 students, and most unpopular president and vice president in history, but which is astonishing because they were the most popular, right? We were told by the media that he got like 82, 83 million votes. He's more popular than Barack Obama, but somehow he wasn't polling well. Go figure. So these people that are for this illegal immigration and voted for this stuff, right? They wanted to be a sanctuary city. Democrats wanted to be sanctuary cities. They want to sit there and make sure that Texas and Arizona and Florida get overrun by illegal immigrants because it didn't affect them. So what they did was, well, look at us, we're sanctuary cities. Ooh. Well, now you have Brooklyn residents are overwhelmingly sitting there getting pissed off because they voted for New York City to be a sanctuary city, and now they're demanding that migrant shelters be closed. Folks, it took less than 8 years for Democrats to go from, you're a racist, you Nazi, you're sitting there locking up migrants, you're not giving them a bed and a pillow to sleep on, you freaking disgusting racist, you bigot, to get them out of here. No migrant shelters. Get them the F out of our states. They don't belong here. It took them less than 8 years to sit there and change their tune.
Now it feels like that whole section
doing that. And that's what
is just not available to the community
asking our local electeds
anymore.
So
our parks are not available to
can't go there.
anymore.
Search out and give us a list of all of the empty lots that there are.
Migrants from a 4,000-bed shelter nearby fill the sidewalks. They sit on park benches, on stoops and curbs, under the BQE overpass. So many people crowded in here, residents feared what was coming.
We have been witnessing the escalation in violence on the street and in the community for months now.
We've been pleading with the mayor, as we've seen increased violence, that this was going to be inevitable.
And on Sunday night,
Hold on, hey, guys, Patriot, slow down in the chat a second. Hold on. Whoa. Buttigieg just said that crime was. Hold on a second, because he said crime was down, but that's weird. One of his voters here. Hold on a second. There's no way in hell this lady's Republican. Just said crime was right?
Escalation in violence on the street.
Hold on, what?
Witnessing the escalation in violence.
Wait. Escalation in what? Why? But crime is down when illegal immigrants are here. Hold on a second. Hey.
On the street and in the community for months now.
We've been pleading with the mayor as we've seen increased violence.
Guys, what was that? What was that?
Now, we've been pleading with the mayor as we've seen increased violence.
Oh, an increase in violence. Okay, gotcha.
That this was going to be inevitable.
And on Sunday night, it came. 2 people were murdered here, a third critically injured just outside one of the 2 adjacent shelters in Clinton Hill. It is a neighborhood now, pleading for help. Residents came together tonight to demand the city provide more protection for them now and move to downsize the 2 enormous and crowded migrant shelters in Clinton Hill.
There is simply no universe where you can cram 4,000 vulnerable people together safely. Do you believe us now? How many more?
This is no connection. There's no connection. Just, can I make a point here? Listen to him.
Do you believe us now? How many more murders will...
He said there's no way that you can safely basically put 4,000 migrants. Hey, dude, the Democrats were doing it under Obama, and then Trump inherited this crisis at the border, and you're pissed because they couldn't put them places. And then Joe Biden sat there and opened borders during COVID, and guess what? They didn't have enough room in these migrant shelters at the border. So he had to sit there and stuff these pods full of hundreds of people when it wasn't supposed to be because the CDC only had a capacity of 50% because there was COVID. But you guys can't do it. You heard it.
Will it take?
This video is responsible for the 2 Sunday night murders. In the video, he appears to be putting a gun in his waistband. The mayor today didn't offer much hope, saying police are looking at a violent Venezuelan street gang as the people behind the shootings.
They're extremely dangerous. We're dealing with violent individuals that are not representative of the overwhelming number of people who are coming here as migrant and asylum seekers.
No one has yet been arrested for those murders on Sunday night, and that...
Just talks about a city being freaking ran over, their budget's exploding, they've declared a state of an emergency, begging Joe Biden for some sort of monetary relief, and the dude comes out, yeah, nobody's actually been arrested for these murders, they're still roaming the streets, killing your children and killing other Americans. No biggie, don't worry about it, it's not representative of, all these people that are seeking asylum. Folks, they're allowing terrorists to come into this country. We don't know who these people are. They're not being vetted, you guys. How do I know that? I get my sources from the freaking CBP, the border patrol agents, and ICE, and our own president, and the government details. So these people that are pouring across the border, some of them are terrorists. Like, some of them are good people, folks, obviously, okay? Well, because you got terrorism has serious consequences. And we saw some of these consequences recently take place in Israel over the weekend, where the IDF has identified 11 kids killed in a soccer field by Hezbollah. So 11 of the 12 kids were killed by a rocket at a playground in Israel, as thousands gathered for funerals of the slain children. Now, what's even more messed up is there wasn't a lot of time for the kids to react. There were rumors from a reporter from Fox News there, I forget his name, forgive me, but he talked about how the response was really late and the kids were running to the bomb shelter. So the terrible thing is, They would have to go out of this area to get to the bomb shelter, which is probably like 10, 15 feet from the area where the bomb hit on the soccer field. So basically, kids are running, bomb hits them as they're going to the shelter, which is almost like, was that on purpose? Like in terms of like getting them to that route, and that's where you're going to hit them. I mean, obviously the bomb was on purpose, but that took place. Now remember, Hezbollah received, we know this now because they had the parts of the rocket. Guess where they got that rocket from, you guys? Guess where Hezbollah got that rocket from? And I'll give you a hint. Joe Biden's giving them $10 billion of your dollars. Joe Biden is relieving sanctions on these people in a way because Iraq's buying energy from them. Let's see, if you had to guess, who's getting $10 billion of your hard-earned money and just blew up 11 kids? Who do you guys think got that cash? You have that correct, Patriots. The Iranians gave them the missile. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't United States missiles that are killing people, innocent people. That's not what I'm saying. The difference is that we're also giving the Iranians $10 billion of humanitarian aid. That's what I'm saying. And Joe Biden's exacerbating the issue. Remember, Joe Biden is giving the Taliban, who was our enemies for like 2 decades, $47 to $87 million a week. Yeah, people that he's actually giving money to people that killed American troops. And he's also giving money to families that sat there and supported the destruction of American troops. Isn't that astonishing? But nobody wants to raise a brow on that. Kamala Harris sits there and support it. Remember, they go hand in hand, you guys. You heard that from Chuck Schumer. A part of his own party actually said these things. Speaking of that, you have the border. You have terrorism. Okay? With those go hand in hand because now you have 3 Palestinian terror suspects caught after crossing the border illegally. As overwhelmed agent warns, I probably let terrorists in. Oh, good. Oh, isn't that great? Hope you guys are happy. Oh, I'm going to lose it. Border agents detained 3 Palestinian migrants who illegally crossed the southern border after they were found to have possible ties to terrorist organizations earlier this month. Don't worry, this is all cheap fakes. Because actually, I made this whole New York Post website. I made this. This is all fake, according to Karine Jean-Pierre. None of what we're showing you is real. This is all digitally enhanced AI. None of it's legit. One of the migrants had salacious photos on their phone, including a picture of a masked man holding an AK-47, federal law enforcement said. In addition to 3 Palestinians, federal authorities caught 1 migrant from Turkey who was also suspected of having ties to terrorist groups. I mean, they're just pouring across left and right. The migrants were among groups of dozens of migrants who turned themselves into border agents at the San Diego sector, sources said. An investigation of the migrants is ongoing. The group was transferred to Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force is investigating their cases. Oh, man. It's just kind of weird, right? Because it's really most of the Democrat side of the aisle that is sitting there allowing this invasion to happen at our border. And through this invasion, you have actual terror suspects pouring across, but actual terrorists as well, of which we actually know about, and that we just kind of lost in the threat of everything. And the reason why some of these people are being let in as well is because they're being, before they come to the border, they're purchasing false passports that are so good that they're getting by our border protection. And that actually comes from the CIA as well, that there's these terrorist organizations. And one is really known, I forgot his, obviously I can't even pronounce his name, but really known to be making these passports and these illegal documents to allow these terrorists to pour across the borders. Again, that comes from a CIA official herself. Really, don't worry, guys, it's not happening. None of this is happening. We need more patriotism out there. And let's take a break for 1 second and talk about how 2/3 of Americans are at risk of blackouts from heat waves. With terrorist attacks taking place in the country, folks, there's a lot of talks that most of the upcoming attacks are going to go against our electric grid. And once you take care of our electric grid in a negative way, we're kind of all screwed of Americans. And you want to make sure that you're prepared. And you got to really ask yourself, are you really prepared? Claim your power independence from our country's crumble power grid. It's super crumbling. with the Patriot Power Generator 2000X. We've talked about this in the past, folks. Over 150,000 Americans trust these powerful solar panel, these generators, to run things like fridge, fans, TVs, CPAP machines, and more during an emergency. And God forbid, if you got a family member with a health issue, you got to make sure that you got this generator with you. Get yours today at 4patriots.com and score a free 100-watt solar panel. If you're ready to have the ultimate in blackout protection and get a free solar panel, go to 4patriots.com now. Folks, you don't know what's going to happen with thousands of terrorists. It is only a matter of time. Hopefully we catch it early, but it's terrible. If it ain't terrorists, you got foreign adversaries like Russia and China that want to do harm to this country and to our allies. Make sure you're prepared with getting that Generator 2000X, folks. It'll be great for you and your family. And it's nice to know that you're safe having that. Even if you never need to use it, at least it's knowing that it's in the chamber ready to go. Well, we also have this from our House Foreign Affairs chairman saying the biggest threat to U.S. from border tied to Biden's Afghan disaster. Weird. Because none of the media are really talking about that anymore. You know what I mean? And we can't really question Kamala Harris on it because she won't do a press conference. We have here House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman said on Sunday that one of the biggest threats to U.S. national security stems from President Joe Biden's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. But I was told by Chuck Schumer, and we all watched it, that she has nothing but accomplishments. Her record is phenomenal. You've never seen a record like it. She's one of the greatest vice presidents in history. It's not, again, none of this is my words. None of this is my words. Joe Biden couldn't have been better. Look at all his accomplishments. They were so great that the guy had to actually drop out of the race. The guy was so good, he actually had to drop out. Go figure. So this gentleman said, the chairman, he made these remarks on a CBS News Face the Nation interview, and I got that queued up for you. Let's go ahead and roll it.
At foreign policy, you also have issues with the border. What's your assessment of where things stand with U.S. border policy and the national security threats there, especially with this mounting number of arrests at the border in recent weeks?
Well, in addition to the aggravated felons and the fentanyls, and I can go on and on about that, what I worry most about, Robert, is, look, you had the fall of Afghanistan. Thousands of ISIS-K came out of those prisons of Bagram, end up in a region called the Khorasan region, which is Pakistan, Afghanistan, Tajikistan. They make their way over. They come through Mexico, and they enter into the United States, ISIS. When I chaired Homeland, we worried about this, but we never actually saw it. Now we have ISIS in the homeland. Fortunately, the FBI has detained the 8 individuals, but the question is how many more are here?
Bingo!
Chairman McCall of
no follow-up. Let's get the guy off. Shit. He's saying there's terrorists here. We can't let this out. We can't let the people see it. So here's Kamala Harris's achievement, you guys, with the border. By the way, this is being generous. This is like super generous. Suspected terrorists border encounters. Folks, please understand this is the people that were actually just talked to, encountered. This doesn't mention those that were the gotaways that slipped through the cracks, of which we know there's thousands here. So Trump had 14. Hello, Biden Harris, 380 encounters. Look at that percentage. The guy was like, is that a decimal, or do I need to put in a comma? Is that number that big? Don't worry, you guys. You're more protected than ever. You got a president that's really executing the laws on the books. He's really going to take care of the security of this country. You guys, they can't even take care of the security of the former president. And so what are they doing now? Rather than acknowledging it, right? Remember the Democrats, oh, it's staged. He was hit by shrapnel. He was never really shot in the face, even though the FBI is like, yeah, he was shot in the face. What they're doing now, and we covered this yesterday, is Google and big tech companies aren't just censoring this whole idea of conservative and Republicans and shadow banning them like YouTube's doing with us. Mind you, YouTube's been doing this for quite some time. So that's why I say head over to Rumble and follow us over there. At least you'll be seen and heard. Whereas, YouTube is shady. So they were already sitting there scrubbing the internet of Kamala Harris's border czar stuff, right? Oh, she never said this. She never funded this organization. Never happened. And so what are conservatives, Republicans doing? Well, hey, I got a screenshot here of her saying so. Here's her. Here's like 20 clips of her saying that she's the border czar, or that Joe Biden put her in charge of the border. Why does it have all these things, but it's not real all of a sudden? So Google is going as far to sit there and omit Trump's assassination attempt from a key future as Donald Trump Jr. claims big tech is trying to interfere in the election. They already did it before. Folks, did we not call it? Patriots, we called it together as a community, did we not? We said, you think the Hunter Biden laptop story was insane? Where they sat there and said it was Russian disinformation and misinformation. It's a hoax. It's not real. And they go, well, let's build some credibility with this bullshit. And let's get some former CIA directors and intelligence officers to sign a letter saying it's not real. Because then people really believe it. If we can fool them for a short time, then we could sit there and swing the election in Joe Biden's favor. And we know that because 70% of voters said if they knew about the Hunter Biden laptop and they knew that it was real, they would have never voted for Joe Biden. That doesn't mean they would have voted for Donald Trump, but that's 17% relieved from Joe Biden, and thus you have a different president sitting in the Oval Office present time. We all knew what they were doing, and they're going to do it again, and are doing it again right now by suppressing information. And we did it yesterday. I didn't just sit there and take it like as whole cloth as truth, right? We actually went to Google, and we did it together as a community. It's a 2-minute video. I highly recommend you check it out. And I sat there and did different options of finding Donald Trump. So this is getting wild, you guys. Now they're sitting there just full-blown censoring stuff. That's why you want to make sure you're here so that we know what the hell's going on. So a key Google feature is failing to show results for the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. Folks, by the way, it's Facebook as well. It's Meta. It's Meta that's doing this, not just Google. And it's also Snapchat. Snapchat does not know anything and will not reveal anything because it has an AI bot inside it. This comes from Avita of the Dan Bongino show, covered it this morning, talking about how Snapchat has an AI feature that doesn't allow you to sit there and search for the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. But if you look at Kamala Harris, if you type that up, oh yeah, she's running for president, the former VP. It's all up to date. It's all BS what the big tech's coming out with, folks. Google users were surprised to discover that the search engine's autocomplete was apparently omitting suggested results related to the assassination of Donald Trump. It's not alleged. It's not alleged at all, according to Democrats. This is real. We looked at it. We did it together as a community just yesterday, less than 24 hours ago. The anomaly quickly caught the attention of social media users, including a Texas congressman, Donald Trump Jr., who began sharing screenshots of their own examples. So we have some screenshots here. Here's Elon Musk posting about it. Here's Elon Musk showing that, and I didn't even do this specific result. You guys, when you type in President Donald, nothing comes up. Isn't that insane? It doesn't even show him as president. President Donald Reagan? I mean, a lot of people are calling for Elon Musk to create his own search engine, and I think he should. I mean, this guy, you guys, can you imagine if we didn't have Twitter? I mean, really, at this point, is other than Rumble for video and getting news out there, and then Twitter, that's it. I mean, there is no other source of information that isn't being censored. You go on Facebook, it's being censored. The Daily Wire is being censored. They were censored in 2016 and in 2020 as well. You have YouTube censoring and shadow banning people. My channel, 100% is being shadow banned. Hey, the math ain't mathing. And you have Dan Bongino that was removed off YouTube, which is why he's over at Rumble. So really, other than Rumble and X, there's no platform out there that's really for free speech. Yeah, some people claiming they are, but what's going on speaks otherwise. Really insane stuff here. Here's when you type in actual President Donald Trump. Nothing comes up. Even Elon's going, holy shit. What the fuck? What the fuck? Like, Elon's like, dude, this is like pretty insane. I mean, if he's saying wow. Dude. Yeah, the math ain't mathing. That's right. Damn right, man. What's going on, Brian? It's good to see you, folks. I see y'all in there. I see Snarf. I see Star Trek. I see y'all in the chat. Brad, I lost it a long time ago. Yeah. Oh, they're censoring, folks. It's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. And when they can't censor stuff, they'll sit there and just make stuff up, you guys. Like, they will just fabricate stuff. Let's just go through a little bit of how trustworthy the mainstream media and the Democrat Party really is. And can we take a trip down memory lane, you guys? Is that okay with you? Can we take a trip down to back in old 2016 election where you had the Russia collusion? Remember the whole claim that the media heavily reported that Donald Trump's campaign colluded with Russia and to influence the 2016 election. And then they put forth the Mueller report that found no Russia meddling and that Donald Trump never even associated with the Russian government. Just completely fabricated that one. Oh, no, we got a lot more here. Trump mocking a disabled reporter. Remember how they pushed that whole thing? And that, in fact, he wasn't mocking a disabled reporter whatsoever. What about the Charlottesville, the fine people hoax, where Trump allegedly referred to white supremacists as very fine people during the aftermath of the Charlottesville rally? Well, it turns out, full context, Trump's statement shows he condemned neo-Nazi and white supremacists, stating that I'm not talking about the neo-Nazi and the white nationalists because they should be condemned totally. Well, Democrats don't want to sit there and expose that one. They're still promulgating that lie. What about Trump's tax returns, you guys? That was big, right? Where the media speculated that Trump's refusal to release his tax returns meant he was hiding his illicit financial activities or avoiding taxes. Well, fact check, Trump did not release his tax returns. Subsequent reports indicated he paid little to no federal income tax in certain years, though this was legal under the tax code. Correct, because you can carry over losses. That's what it's called, carry over losses. Everybody does it. You don't have to be a billionaire to do it. You don't have to be a millionaire to do it. Average Americans do it all the time. When I was a tax accountant, it wasn't uncommon to see somebody do that because it's legal. What about the Golden Showers dossier? The claim was that there's a Steele dossier alleged, among other things, that Trump engaged in salacious activities in Russia. Well, fact check, it wasn't true. It was completely a hoax. So what about the 2020 election? Like, what was next after 2016, after all these lies? Like, what more could they promulgate here in terms of misinformation, disinformation? Because remember, we're all the conspiracy theorists. We're all the liars, right? Well, 2020 election comes around, and what do they promulgate? Well, the Hunter Biden laptop story was suppression. The media outlets and social media platforms suppressed the New York Times story. Or rather, sorry, it was the New York Post. And the Hunter Biden laptop, alleging it was part of a Russian disinformation campaign. Well, lo and behold, it was what? Lo and behold, it was real. What about Trump downplaying COVID-19? This is something they promulgated, right? Where he was accused of downplaying the severity of COVID-19. Well, if you fact check it, Trump publicly acknowledged the seriousness of the virus, while also trying to maintain calm and avoid panic. However, leaked recordings revealed he privately expressed greater concern. But they don't want to talk about that, folks. They're going to still promulgate that one. What about the peaceful protesters in Lafayette Square? You guys remember that one where Trump ordered the clearing of peaceful protesters in Lafayette Square for a photo op at the St. John's Church? And Kayleigh McEnany was also present for that. Remember when they pushed that whole thing? Well, if you look at the Inspector General's report, which, Democrats don't want to do, they later found out that the clearing was planned in advance to install an anti-scale fencing and was not directly ordered by Trump for a photo op. But they don't want to talk about that because it's a lot easier to fabricate information. And when they fabricate information, it's not misinformation or disinformation. Mind you, if you're fabricating it, it's disinformation. But when Republicans sit there and debunk it, it's not real. It's a hoax. It's fake. It's all conspiracy theories. What they're saying is not real. It's cheap fakes and deep fakes. Look, I'm not saying Republicans don't do this stuff. What I'm saying is Democrats are known to do it on a level that's not even remotely close to conservatives and Republicans. It's consistently one party that's completely working with the mainstream media and big tech companies to censor, to fabricate false stories. And then later, when those false stories are exposed to as being false, all of a sudden, then it's too late. What's a case in point? Snopes. Snopes came out 7 years later regarding the Charlottesville fine people hoax, which just happened 2 months ago. And all of a sudden, it's like, yeah, that wasn't real. Sorry, our bad. Well, at that point, it's a little bit too late. You already screwed over and lied to millions of people that probably thought he was a racist. And because they thought he was a racist, they voted for Joe Biden. What about the mail-in voting fraud? Well, the media broadly dismissed claims of potential widespread voter fraud associated with mail-in voting. Mind you, we saw clips of CNN just accidentally questioning a lady stuffing the ballot box full of ballots. Well, if you fact check it, while extensive evidence of widespread fraud was not found because they didn't really look into it, isolated incidences and concerns about the integrity and security of mail-in voting did take place. But because they didn't look under the hood, nobody did. The same shenanigans from 2016 and 2020 are still going to be promulgated. What about Trump? And this is a big one. They're still pushing. Joe Biden himself was pushing this during the debate, that Donald Trump called fallen soldiers losers and suckers. So if you recall this comes from The Atlantic, that alleged Trump referred to American war dead as losers and suckers. If you fact check it, multiple current and former Trump administration officials denied the allegations, and there was no corroborating evidence provided. He got it from one admiral or general or whoever, which is ultimately fired, and probably for a good reason, because he lied. I mean, you guys, the misinformation is consistent with the Democrat Party, and it's all going to sit there and come out again. As you're seeing, they're sitting there removing all this stuff from the, hell, again, Facebook, Meta, Google, you name it. And they're suppressing information about Donald Trump. They're suppressing all this information. And then ultimately later, years down the road, they'll go, oh, our bad, my bad. Yeah, we were wrong about that. Don't worry about it. But at that point, you've already sit there and swung things in favor of the Democrat Party. So what is she doing is, well, she's still lying, you guys. And by who's she, I mean Kamala Harris is still lying. So Kamala Harris campaign claims she won't be fracking after she unequivocally stated she would. So here we go. Again, that's why we just showed all this evidence of 2016 and 2020 about the Democrat Party saying something and then spinning it to say as if they never said it, or saying, well, we're not going to do that anymore. So you spent an entire presidential campaign, Kamala, in 2020 pushing this whole idea about fracking, and then when you're questioning on it, all of a sudden you're like, yeah, we won't be banning fracking. So here she is saying that there's no question I'm in favor of banning it.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yeah, and starting with what we can do on day one around public lands, right? And then there has to be legislation. But yes, and this is something I've taken on in California. I have a history of working on this issue. And to your point,
don't CA the USA, Kamala. Don't CA this country. So we got the spinning wheel of death here is what I call it. Let's refresh this, and we'll make sure we take care of you folks on the rest of this clip here, because we want to make sure we play it in totality.
Something I've taken on in California. I have a history of working on this issue. And to your point, we have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact on the health and safety of communities. Yeah, so thank you.
Don't worry, you guys. She was never for it, though. She was never for it. Yeah, okay, well, let's go to a clip in 2019 here on Jimmy Fallon.
She's got a whole lot of hot button issues that we could touch on. But what's the first thing we need to do to give us all some relief?
Well, let me start by saying this. Climate change is the single greatest threat facing our world today. That's why I am committed to passing a Green New Deal, creating clean jobs, and finally putting an end to fracking once and for all.
Don't worry, you guys. She was never for it. She's not for it. It's all foolery. It's all fake. It's not real. She's not going to end fracking. She's not going to do any of those things. So still pushing that wild stuff. And, she's sitting there being covered by the mainstream media, you guys. The media is going to cover all this BS. The media is going to sit there and say, well, she's not for fracking. No, she's not for fracking. She's not for the Green New Deal. She was never the border czar. But they're already doing it. Let's show the receipts. They're already doing it. This comes from RNC Research. Pete Buttigieg wants to be very clear that Kamala Harris was not in charge of the border. So these are her surrogates. And here's all these people. He's lying. How do we know that? Well, here's all the media. And the media will say, we never said this. Kamala Harris takes lead on the border crisis. ABC News, Associated Press, Biden tapes VP Harris to lead response to border challenges. Axios, Biden puts Harris in charge of the border crisis. CBS News, Harris to lead administration's efforts to stem migration at the border. Fox News, VP Harris touts successes as border czar as she returns the immigration beat with overseas investments. How about The Hill? Biden tapes Harris to lead on immigration amid border crisis. Huffington Post, Kamala Harris to lead Biden efforts to control border migration. Los Angeles Times, Vice President Harris will lead response. I mean, it keeps going. Don't worry, you guys. Nothing real, though. No, it's not real.
Now, let's be very clear about this, because there has been a lot of mischaracterization.
Oh, mischaracterization.
She was not in charge of the border. The Homeland Security Department is in charge of the border. She did do something important, though.
Gotcha.
She was assigned to conduct diplomacy with Central American countries. Now, let's be very clear about this.
Oh, gotta be very clear. Very clear. God, that sounds a lot like Karine Jean-Pierre. Well, let me be clear about this. Well, you're not clear whatsoever. And you want to know, they've never been clear. This administration came out on day one, goes, I'm going to be the most transparent administration that's ever taken place. Least transparent. Still doesn't answer questions. The media is working now in conjunction, which we called, again, I know I don't want to keep patting ourselves on the back, but hey, folks, us as a community, you're patriots. We're getting it right, are we not? that this was exactly what we said the media was going to do. Either they were going to shift towards Joe Biden, that this whole idea that his brain wasn't working was going to go off in space as if we never covered it. And they were going to get behind the candidate regardless. And then, no behold, Joey drops out. So who are they getting behind now? Kamala Harris, because Donald Trump's so bad. Donald Trump's an orange bad man. He's so terrible. He's going to ruin the country, a threat to democracy and the republic. He's an existential threat, right? That's what they're saying, which he's not any of those things. He's just a guy that wants to make America great again. I mean, shit, he took a bullet for this country. The guy doesn't need to do it. You know what I mean? If he was going to sit there and be an actual threat to this country, do you think he needs all this shit? Do you think he needs his family being just having court thing after court thing, lawsuit after lawsuit? Do you think he needs all this BS? Absolutely not. He could be on the golf courses of Mar-a-Lago and hitting a freaking 18 holes every day, having a nice stogie and having a little bit of fun with his life. But he sees what the Democrat Party's doing, driving this country into the ground, and he wants to sit there and make it better again. All the while, you have people that are championing democracy and that we're a threat to it, but yet don't want to sit there and actually follow out democracy to put forth a Democratic nominee. They did with Joe Biden, gave the double middle finger to their own party, and Democrats all for it going, oh, we got a new candidate. She's amazing. She's great. She's going to fix everything. I just, some people, I really question. I'm not saying Americans are stupid. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, for some odd reason, people can't look back at the history of Kamala Harris and just make an informed decision of like, God, she really fucked up California. Like, yeah, she really screwed up that one. God, she's talking about communist agenda. Ooh, God, it's not good. Geez, she wants to sit there and allow open borders and terrorists to pour across so my family's like less safe. Oh God. Like, if you keep looking at all these things, it's like either they're choosing not to look at it, or they're just not informed well enough to make a decision. And when they try to seek out information to be well informed, it just gets all covered up, which is what we're seeing from big tech right now. So that just gets me going. It gets me going. Again, if you didn't see yesterday's video of how we showed the Google stuff, make sure you check that out, folks. And if you're falling asleep, well, I got something that's going to wake you up, folks. Let me wet my whistle a little bit with some good tasting coffee. This has been a sponsor of the show, folks. It's time to say goodbye to Starbucks. It's called $5, okay? It's only going to get more expensive. You should be making your own coffee at home. And there's nothing better than Rumble 1775 coffee, folks. Unlike other brands, this is a coffee that actually backs free speech, unlike big tech and other corporations out there that we're seeing. And folks, they're unapologetic about it, okay? If I was sitting there drinking this out of a patriotic mug like the Bald Brad Show, and shout out to Pat and Shib for buying these mugs up. And if Shib allows me, I'll show him a picture wearing our merch in the mug. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool picture. Visit 1775coffee.com and use promo code STUDIO40 for another 40% off, you guys. They're hooking us up here. Like, normally I'm used to the 15, 20%, but the 40% every week is getting a little outrageous. They're giving this stuff away. The coffee comes in medium and dark roast. As I've always mentioned, to get a beard like this, folks, you got to get the dark roast. It's going to put hair on your chest, okay? If you're lacking with a little bit of hair, get that dark roast. It also comes in pea berry, which is like a Kona coffee. In other words, it's a premium brand. It's not going to be chunky. It's fine-tuned, folks. It's sitting there. It's going to brew well. No matter what coffee maker you use, this stuff's going to come out premium. Click on the link in the live chat or the description. You can also go directly to 1775coffee.com. Use promo code STUDIO40 to get that 40% off today. We love brands that are for free speech and for patriotism. And hell, it speaks volumes. It's in the name. Well, speaking of patriotism and people that were serving this country, but also serving our local communities, we got SWAT officers coming out here and saying that they had no communication with Secret Service until after Donald Trump was shot. You guys, this is an insane clip. It's not like, it wasn't like they were in meeting, or how do I even put this? When they say no communication, they mean they weren't involved in anything.
We were supposed to get a face-to-face briefing with the Secret Service snipers whenever they arrived, and that never happened. So I think that was probably a pivotal point where I started thinking things were wrong, because that never happened, and we had no communication with the Secret Service.
You had no communication with the Secret Service at all on that Saturday?
Not until after the shooting.
And by then?
It was too late.
Yo, That is just wild stuff. I mean, the more and more that comes out, man, it's just not making things look good. And quite frankly, Trump is going back to Butler, Pennsylvania, and he wants to do more outside rallies. And dude, it's stressing me out. I don't trust the Secret Service. I don't. After what took place, it makes me very nervous. And the fact that he's already put out there that he's going to come back to Pennsylvania, specifically the place where the first assassination took place, it worries me that something else is going to happen here. And it worries me big time. Now, something else that should worry you guys big time is Biden and Harris are calling for Supreme Court term limits, code of conduct, and limits on presidential immunity. This is crazy because one thing that's not included in this is packing the courts. So President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris are calling on Congress to impose term limits on the code of conduct on the Supreme Court while also drafting limits on presidential immunity. Because they don't like that they don't get their way, then they have to change the process of what's been done. Now, I'm not saying just because the process has been done this way for an extremely long time that we shouldn't change those types of things. And the reason why I want to say that is because it's a talking point from Karine Jean-Pierre. Karine Jean-Pierre will say, well, it's been the process. It's been the law for hundreds of years. Well, so was slavery. Slavery was allowed to go on for an extremely long time. And just because it was around for a long time, or segregation, whatever the laws were that were not good, just because it was there for a long time doesn't mean that we should keep it going. But here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with having the Supreme Court having the rules in terms of not having a term limit. They don't like it because nothing's going their way, because you have people on the court that actually have their head on straight that are looking at as textualists, going and examining what was the premise of what's being written at the time of being written. And they don't like it. And so what are they doing? Well, let's just go ahead and change it. In the same way, I mean, this builds my case 100%. Case in point is when Joe Biden wasn't working out for them, rather than going through the correct route of forms of democracy, let's just change it. Oh, we don't need to follow the rules. Let's just implement Kamala Harris. Not a single vote. Let's just do it. Do you want another example, Democrats? Okay, that's fine. Let's look at the Supreme Court saying that you can't sit there and relieve student loan debt forgiveness, but because you didn't get your way, you're just going to do it anyways. That's a case in point. But yet, when it comes to certain things, you want to make sure that you go the legislative route. Well, what do I mean? Well, remember, Karine Jean-Pierre said, oh, well, we should be doing things the legislative way. Like the border. We should be figuring out our immigration issue. It's been broken for decades. Look what's going on. Republicans this, Republicans that. You know, but why is it, Karine, that when it works with your narrative, you're going to sit there and utilize executive authority to remove student loan debt forgiveness, but when it doesn't work for your narrative, you want to go the legislative route. So this is how wish-washy this whole party is, has always been, and will continue to be. And you want to speak about wish-washy, we'll end off with this fine clip here, where Kamala Harris, and I want to make sure I brought this up because there's really no good place in pushing it around. You have here, do you guys remember this, where she sat there and hired kids to do an interview with?
One of the things I'm most excited about. But the other, you guys are going to see. You're going to literally see the craters on the moon with your own eyes. Oh my goodness. With your own eyes, I'm telling you, it is going to be unbelievable. So that's one of the things we can do here too.
What was the purpose of me showing that clip at the end? Everything is fabricated. Everything from this party right now is fabricated. It's scripted. It's not real. None of it is. Her even being the nominee isn't even real. And most quite literally, because she was never voted for. Furthermore, you look at what took place under Joe Biden's regime. Everything was scripted, quite literally. That's why we always make the joke that it was the teleprompter that's undefeated with this guy. The teleprompter's kicked Joey's ass for the last 4 years and is still undefeated. I was hoping for, hey, is this teleprompter going to keep kicking his ass up until ultimately the end of his term? We'll see. He's not doing too many speaking engagements right now, so we'll have to wait and see. But everything is scripted. Everything is manufactured. And it's going to continue to happen in conjunction with the fact that now they're working in conjunction with big tech and media to censor things, make sure that you can't actually look up and have other search results, to the point where they're actually removing certain stories and saying, oh, sorry, yeah, we were wrong. When in actuality, they were never wrong. And saying Trump is a liar, saying that we're liars, we're fabricating this information, it's misinformation, it's disinformation. And ultimately, it's going to end up confusing people. And when it confuses people and they have sitting there promulgating Democrat talking points to the American people while suppressing conservative Republican talking points, that's when you sit there and capitalize on that movement. And then you get somebody like Kamala Harris being elected the next president of the United States, and it's going to happen. Now, I'm hoping she doesn't, but right now the polls are going, don't believe polls. They're going in either direction. We got less than 100 days before this election. You guys are going to see some crazy stuff if we haven't already. I mean, we called it. We were ready for it. It's only going to get worse, man. It's only going to get way worse with what they're doing. And we got to make sure that we're mentally prepared. That we're all sitting there and ready to go. Something I want to give a shout out here. I didn't know I have 2 mugs set up. We have this here. If you haven't gone to Bald Brad store, I saw Agent 355 posted in the chat for the mugs. I don't make these. We have a third-party vendor that does it, but you can get the shirts. The shirts are awesome. They're good quality. And I'm actually just going to show the picture of Shib. He's not in the chat, but hell, he posted on Twitter, so I figure it's public information. We have the American Patriot brand here, and our boy Shib has a picture of him carrying a mug and wearing the shirt. So head over to Bald Brad's store, and you can get all sorts of stuff. And let's see one of our listeners and longtime viewers of the Bald Brad Show. Let's see if I can find him for you. He bought a bunch of stuff. Maybe it's in my notifications. Let's see Shib. You guys don't know Shibatron. There he is. There's Shib. There's our boy. Look at the man sporting the Bald Brad Show merch and posting it on Twitter. And he's not even American. I think that's the greatest thing. One, good looking dude. The guy's completely jacked. Look at those forearms, by the way. Jesus, man, put those guns down. You're going to hurt somebody. He's wearing the merch. And by the way, that looks good, dude. That's a nice fitting shirt. And you got the Bald Brad Show mug. I got to give you a cheers, brother. Thank you so much, man. Look at that. Ooh, same mug. But it's just funny, too, because like I said, the dude's wearing it in the United Kingdom. He's not American. He doesn't live here in this country. He's wearing the Patriot merch. Yes! And like I said, I think the best thing for me was I was checking the fit. Does it look good? Look at that. Look at that. It ain't hanging low, folks. It ain't hanging low. It's a tight fit. It's a good quality shirt. And, he had to get another mug because his wife dropped the other one. So, wanted to make sure we shout out some of our followers. If you don't follow me over at Twitter, do so, you guys. I do reply. Lily messaged me the other day with some YouTube stuff. Head over to Twitter and follow me over there if you haven't already. And thanks for hanging out, folks. That is today's episode. We'll be back here tomorrow. Remember, starting Monday next week, we're going to 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Again, starting August 5th, show will start at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard. I don't want you guys to forget. We're going to be going again starting August 5th, 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We used to have that time anyways. That's not an uncommon show time for us. So right now I'm training myself to wake up at like 5:15 in the morning so we can get that done. That's why I'm a little bit more awake today. With that being said, folks, I hope you have a blessed week. Hit me up on social media if you need anything or any questions answered, and I will see you tomorrow here on the Bald Brad Show. Take care, Patriots.